Black CEO went on a broke dad blind date. What she did next changed his life forever. Subscribe for more stories. A millionaire CEO showed up for a blind date with his twin daughters, intent on looking like he was struggling to make ends meet. The entire evening shifted, however, the moment she reached for her wallet. "You brought your children on a date?" the host inquired softly, an eyebrow arched as Malik Johnson juggled his wriggling girls. "Yes," he replied with a steady voice, a baby bag slung over one shoulder. "It isn't a date. Not in the traditional sense." The woman seemed unconvinced but motioned toward a table by the window. "You're in luck. Only one reservation with children tonight." Table 5-inch Malik gave a slight nod, his pulse racing faster than it did during any high-stakes boardroom negotiation. Dressed in worn jeans and a simple T-shirt, he was unrecognizable as the mogul from business magazines. His bespoke suits and chauffeur car were swapped for a rented, aging sedan and two mismatched hair ties restraining Zuri and Nia's abundant coils. He settled the girls into high chairs. Nia immediately reached for the salt shaker, while Zuri clutched her plush pink elephant, her eyes wide with curiosity. Malik drew a long breath and watched the entrance. He already knew his scheduled date wasn't coming. Her final text had been brutally brief. Sorry, can't do a broke dad of two. Best of luck, He was just about to wrangle his daughters and leave when the door swung open. A woman entered, a cloth tote bag on her shoulder and a novel in her hand. She scanned the room, glanced at her phone, and then her gaze found his table. With a slightly tentative smile, she walked directly toward him. "Hi, I'm Amara," she said, tucking a stray braid behind her ear. "My apologies for being late. The bus was running behind schedule." Malik stared, momentarily speechless. "Oh, I know," she continued, taking a seat opposite him without a second look at her phone. "Not exactly a glamorous arrival, but you mentioned a window table with kids, so I figured this had to be the place." He opened his mouth to explain the mix-up, but then he truly saw her. There was an earnest, quiet reality in her eyes, a charming awkwardness to her smile, and beneath it all, a familiar weariness. "No problem at all," he said, his voice gentle. "We just arrived ourselves." Amara's gaze shifted to the girls, who were observing her with intense curiosity. "I wasn't aware I'd be dining with such esteemed company," she remarked with a warm smile. Nia's eyes narrowed. "Do you like cats?" Amara let out a soft laugh. "I like them more than most people." Zuri slid a purple crayon across the table. "Draw me one." And just like that, Amara grabbed a paper napkin and began to sketch. In moments, the girls were giggling, pointing at her lopsided drawing of a kitten, utterly captivated. Malik leaned back, astonished. The typical discomfort of introducing someone new to his daughters had vanished. This felt effortless, natural. Dinner was a whirlwind of delightful chaos. Spaghetti sauce splattered, juice was spilled, and the napkin supply dwindled rapidly. Amara didn't bat an eye. She dabbed at Nia's chin and recounted a story about the time she tripped and landed face first in a birthday cake at the library where she worked. The girls howled with laughter. Malik felt a new, warm sensation stirring deep within him. It had been a long time since anything had felt so genuine. Amara didn't inquire about his profession. She didn't bring up money or achievements or anything related to his public persona. She asked Zuri about her favorite animal and listened intently to Nia's tale of a magical pebble she had found. When she caught Malik watching her, her smile was real and unguarded, not flirtatious or calculated. Partway through the meal, a waiter discreetly placed the bill on the table. "No rush," he said courteously. "Dessert is on its way." Malik glanced at the leather folder. His hand instinctively went to his back pocket, but then stopped. This wasn't his car. These weren't his jeans. He wasn't even certain he had a wallet on him. A brief, sharp pang of panic struck him. Amara noticed. Without any fuss, she simply retrieved her own worn leather wallet, produced a card, and handed it to the waiter with a kind smile. "It's all right," she said, pushing a braid from her face. "I've certainly been on worse dates." Malik turned to her, stunned. "You didn't have to do that, I know," she interrupted softly. "But I wanted to. "You look like you could use a little kindness." He fell silent, the restaurant's clamor fading into the background. It wasn't about the money. He could have bought the entire block. It was about how she perceived him, not as Johnson the Titan of industry, but as a man grappling with high chairs and juice boxes. A man doing his best. He looked at her, really looked. Faint lines of fatigue circled her eyes, likely from late nights with books, not parties. Her blouse was simple, her nails bare. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was just present, human, and kind. As the restaurant emptied, their table remained a vibrant hub of laughter and coloring. Amara broke a breadstick, handing a piece to Zuri as she continued a story about her childhood. "I grew up in a house where money was always tight," she mused, her gaze distant. "But we had books in every corner, on every shelf, even stacked on the floor. My mother would read to me by candlelight when the power was out. It's why I became a librarian. Books made me feel wealthy when we had nothing." Malik listened, captivated. There was no bitterness in her voice, only a quiet gratitude for what she'd had. His usual dates were concerned with his Aspen ski lodge or his wine collection. Amara never once asked about his work. She seemed to care only about who he was. For the first time in ages, Malik felt truly seen. "You must really love your job," he ventured. Amara nodded. "Eat dough. Seeing the kids' faces light up after school when I remember their names or save a book for them. It might seem small, but I like to think it matters." Zuri leaned her head against Amara's arm, and Amara gently wiped a crumb from the child's cheek. "These girls," she whispered, "are so special." Malik swallowed hard. "They're my entire world." As the meal concluded, Malik stood and offered to walk Amara to the bus stop, or at least give her a ride. "It's not a fancy car," he admitted with a knowing half-smile, "but it gets you from A to B." Amara hesitated, looking out the window. "That's okay," she said softly. "I enjoy the walk. It helps me think." He tried to hide his disappointment. Of course, she gave a little wave to the girls and bent to kiss Zuri's forehead. "Thanks for the cat drawing. Little artist, come draw again," Nia called out. A smile lingered on Amara's face. "Maybe." And with that, she turned and disappeared into the night. Malik drove home in quiet contemplation. The twins were already drifting off in their car seats, their hands smudged with crayon. A single napkin drawing fluttered on the dashboard, a cat with far too many whiskers, and the words Amara plus Zuri in child scrawl. He stared at it after parking in his sprawling garage, a tightness in his chest. His mind drifted to another night, long ago, when his late wife, Layla, had sat on the kitchen floor with the girls, drawing farm animals on newspaper with washable markers, her laughter echoing in the room. That memory had always been a painful one, making every new connection feel like a betrayal. But tonight, watching Amara with his daughters, seeing her laugh as juice stained her sleeve, he had felt a sense of peace. Not guilt, not betrayal, just a quiet inkling that perhaps healing wasn't a betrayal at all. Maybe it was okay to move forward. He looked at the drawing one last time before carefully folding it and placing it in the glove compartment. A small seed of hope had been planted, and for the first time in a very long time, that was enough. For days had passed since their dinner. 4 days since Amara had accidentally crashed the wrong date and won him over with nothing more than crayons, spaghetti, and genuine kindness. Malik couldn't get her out of his head. The way she'd laughed with the girls, the way she'd paid the bill without a hint of judgment. His only clue was a passing comment she'd made. "I work at the library near Pine Street, the one with the red doors." On Saturday morning, Malik bundled the girls back into the car. He told himself it was merely a trip to the library. No expectations, just a flicker of hope. The red doors were unmistakable. Inside, the scent of old paper and polish was a comforting embrace. A group of children sat cross-legged in a cozy corner, mesmerized by a woman in a soft sweater holding a well-loved picture book. And then the bear roared, "Who has taken my hat?" Amara's voice was theatrical, drawing giggles from her small audience. Zuri gasped, "That's her." Nia clapped her hands. "She's here." Before he could react, the twins darted forward, weaving through the other children to get to Amara. She paused mid-sentence, startled, then her eyes lifted and widened as she saw Malik standing near the entrance, his hands tucked in his pockets. "Ah," he said softly. She closed the book. "Everyone, let's take a 5-minute break, okay?" Amid faint protests, the children scattered toward beanbag chairs. Amara rose to her feet. "You found me," Malik nodded. "I remember what you said about the red doors." The ensuing silence was thick with uncertainty. Zuri held up a folded piece of paper. "We made you another drawing." Amara accepted it with a gentle smile. "Thank you, sweetheart." Her gaze returned to Malik. "You weren't who I was supposed to meet that night." "No," he admitted. "You weren't." Amara crossed her arms. "Then why did you let me stay?" Malik took a slow breath. "Because I couldn't let you leave. Not when someone was finally seeing me. Not Johnson, the CEO. Not the man with the fortune. Just me. The dad, trying to keep it all together. The man who misses his wife. The man who just needed one night that didn't feel like a transaction." Amara's expression was unreadable. "I didn't lie," he added quickly. "I just didn't correct you. For once, someone wasn't looking at me through a lens of money and power. You sat down and you listened to my daughters. You paid the bill. You laughed at the mess." Her gaze softened but remained fixed on him. He took a hesitant step closer. "My name is Malik Johnson. I run a corporation that probably funds your library's donation drives. I own too many suits and live in a house that's far too big for 3 people. And most days I hate it. But the other night, none of that mattered. Because of you." Amara swallowed, glancing at the twins who were now browsing a nearby bookshelf. "So," she said quietly, "what happens now?" "I don't know," he answered honestly. "I just knew I couldn't let you vanish without telling you the truth. Not because I expect anything, but because you deserve to know." She looked down at the drawing in her hand. It was another cat, this time with a pink heart above its head. "What I saw that night," she said softly, "that was real. The way you look at them. The way they look at you. The way you watched me, like you were seeing something that terrified and amazed you all at once. That wasn't an act." "No, it wasn't," he confirmed. She met his eyes again. "But I need some time to figure out what's real when everything surrounding you feels so complicated." He nodded. "Take all the time you need." A long pause hung between them. Not a goodbye, but a beginning. And for now, that felt like enough. In the days that followed, their encounters were small, quiet affairs. Malik brought the twins to the library often, always feigning surprise when Amara smiled at their arrival. They met at the park, the girls running barefoot through the grass while Amara read from a storybook, her voice a soothing melody. Malik watched from a bench, struck by how her presence could make a simple afternoon feel significant. One Friday evening, a folded note appeared in Amara's mailbox, the handwriting endearingly childlike. "Asterisk, dear Miss Amara, come have dinner. We made drawings and cookies. Love, Zuri, and Nia, and Daddy too." Asterisk, she pressed a hand to her chest, a smile spreading across her face. She already knew she couldn't refuse. That Sunday, Malik drove them not to his massive estate, but to a small cottage tucked away at the edge of town. "This was my mother's," he explained, pulling into the gravel drive. "I keep it just as she left it. It's where I come when I need to stop being Mr. Johnson." The house was modest and welcoming, with flower pots on the porch and the gentle sound of an old wind chime. Inside, Zuri and Nia had transformed the living room into a gallery, their crayon masterpieces taped to every available surface. Amara laughed as she entered. "You weren't kidding about the drawings." Zuri immediately grabbed her hand. "Come sit by me." Dinner was spaghetti again by popular demand. Malik, wearing an apron that read "Kiss the Cook," feigned embarrassment when sauce splashed onto his shirt. The girls chattered endlessly about library books and favorite colors. Amara listened, asked questions, and never once glanced at her phone. After the meal, as Malik dug out a box of old board games, Amara helped clear the table. She knelt to tie Zuri's shoe, and the little girl tilted her head back, her coils bouncing. "You have a braid in your eyes," Amara said gently. She brushed the braid aside and carefully secured it with a tiny barrette. Zuri beamed. Malik stood in the doorway, drying a plate, his heart arrested. In that small, simple gesture, something shifted inside him. The absolute trust in Zuri's eyes, the kind of affection a child gives so freely, stole his breath. It wasn't orchestrated or forced. It was real. Amara sat back on her heels and looked up. I've never seen a child trust someone so quickly. Malik's voice was low. I've never seen anyone make them feel so safe, so fast. He saw her surprise. I mean it, he said, setting the dish towel down. They're wary of new people. After Layla passed, it's like they developed a sixth sense for insincerity. But you walked into our lives, and it was as if they'd been waiting for you. Amara's eyes glistened. She looked away, smoothing a hand over her jeans. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. I just care. That's exactly what they need. The girls were now curled up together with a picture book, their heads resting on each other. The evening light streamed softly through the windows, making the world outside with its headlines and pressures feel a million miles away. Amara turned back to Malik. You're different here. I'm myself here, he corrected. The me who isn't being trailed by paparazzi or asked for market projections. She moved a step closer. You don't have to prove anything here. Not to them. And not to me, he managed a smile. That's what scares me. That this is real. Amara's voice dropped to a whisper. Then don't run from it. Malik looked at her, truly looked, with a gaze that saw past the surface, a gaze that held not just romance, but gratitude and wonder. Somehow, without even trying, she had become essential to their small world. And for the first time in years, that world no longer felt broken. The photograph surfaced on a quiet Tuesday morning, a grainy shot taken through the branches of a tree. Amara holding hands with Zuri and Nia, skipping down the sidewalk outside the Pine Street Library. She was radiant. The girls were laughing. The caption beneath it read, * mystery woman with Johnson twins. Who is she? * within hours. Her name was everywhere. By evening, reporters had pieced together her life. Photographers staked out her modest apartment building. Microphones were shoved in her face. Headlines speculated wildly. Gold digger? Secret affair? They dissected her quiet existence with brutal indifference. Malik saw the storm erupt. His name was back in the spotlight, but this time it dragged in someone he cared for, someone who had never asked for any of it. He called her repeatedly. The calls went to voicemail. At the library the next morning, the director summoned her into his office, his expression pained. There's been pressure, he began, avoiding her eyes. One of our major donors has threatened to pull funding. They're concerned about the media circus. Amara's heart plummeted. I haven't done anything wrong. I know that, he said wearily. But they're not concerned with right and wrong. They're concerned with optics. She left the library carrying a small box of her personal things, the hushed whispers of her colleagues trailing her like ghosts. It had taken years to build her peaceful, simple life. A single photo had dismantled it. That night, she sat on her sofa in numb silence as her phone buzzed relentlessly with texts from unknown numbers. She read only one message over and over. * Amara, please talk to me. I never wanted this to happen. Malik * she didn't reply. The chaos crested the next morning. A throng of reporters mobbed the sidewalk. A neighbor shouted from down the hall. Is it true? Are you marrying him? Then, a new sound cut through the clamor. A car, door slamming, decisive footsteps, and the sudden hush that falls over a crowd when someone of consequence arrives. Malik Johnson stood at the bottom of her steps, his expensive coat unbuttoned, his hair disheveled by the wind. Camera flashes strobed around him. He ignored them completely, his gaze fixed on Amara's door. From her window, she watched him, her hand trembling on the curtain. He took a step forward, his voice rising just enough to carry over the din. I can't make the world go away, Amara, he called out. But I can stand between you and it. I can take the cameras, the questions, the noise. Just give me the word. His voice cracked slightly. Let me stand with you. She remained frozen, her heart a painful drum against her ribs. Tears blurred her vision. Her fingers hovered over the deadbolt, but she didn't turn it. Instead, her voice emerged, small but clear through the door. You have to protect your daughters. Keep them out of this. They're already in it, he countered. They've asked for you every single night this week. Because they miss you. And so do I. A sob caught in her throat. I didn't ask for any of this, I know. But neither did we. And yet, somehow, this became the most real thing in my life. A long silence stretched, punctuated only by the clicking of cameras. "I'm sorry," she whispered through the door, "but I need you to go." He stood there a moment longer, then gave a slow, defeated nod. He turned and walked back through the parting sea of reporters, each step weighted with finality. Amara slid to the floor, her back against the cool wood, the box from her library desk beside her. She closed her eyes and wished the world would just stop spinning. The drawing was still taped to Amara's front door. Wobbly lines, lopsided hearts, and the words, "We miss you, Miss Amara," written in crayon. Zuri had used purple. Nia's orange handprint was pressed in the corner. For 3 days, Amara paused every time she left her apartment, her fingers brushing the paper. And every time, she walked away with an ache in her chest. The media frenzy had subsided, but the damage was done. Her job remained in limbo, her name a piece of online gossip. She told herself this was for the best: distance, quiet, no attachments. But at night, she dreamed of small hands in hers and soft giggles over picture books. She missed the messy dinners and the vibrant warmth of the little house at the edge of town. She missed them. At Malik's home, the silence was heavy and suffocating. The girls knew only that Amara was gone. On the third night, Nia climbed into her father's lap, her eyes filled with a child's profound confusion. "Is Miss Amara gone forever?" she asked. Malik gently wiped a tear from her cheek. "No, es waitie. She just needs some space." Nia clutched his shirt. "Did we do something bad?" Malik's heart constricted. "No, baby girl. Never. She loves you very much." Nia's voice trembled. "Then why won't she come back?" He had no answer. The next morning, he found his daughters at the kitchen table, surrounded by crayons, working with an unusual, solemn focus. When they finished, Zuri held up their creation. It showed 3 simple stick figures labeled "Us," with hearts floating around them. Above were the words, "We bring our hearts to you." Malik stared at it, then made a decision. "We're going to see her," he announced. This time, no cameras followed. He took the back roads and parked 2 blocks away, carrying the girls to her building. The first drawing was still there, fluttering in the breeze. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again, softer. Still nothing. He looked down at his waiting daughters. "Ready?" Zuri nodded and reached up, taping their new artwork directly below the old one. Then, the 2 little girls stood side by side before the door, their arms stretched wide, poised for a hug they weren't sure would ever come. Inside, Amara had been trying to organize her bookshelf, a futile attempt to busy her mind. She heard the knock and froze. Then she heard it, the faint sound of giggling, the soft rustle of paper, and the undeniable presence of love on her doorstep. She opened the door, and there they were, Zuri and Nia, arms open, eyes shining. No spectacle, no reporters, just pure, unadulterated hope. Zuri whispered. Amara dropped to her knees, her own arms flying open as tears streamed down her face. The girls rushed into her embrace without hesitation, burying their faces in her neck. "I missed you," Amara choked out. So much." Malik stood back, his hands in his pockets, waiting until she finally looked up, her eyes raw with emotion. "I didn't come with headlines," he said, his voice quiet, "or big promises. I just came with my heart." And she rose slowly, still clinging to the girls. "Why are you really here?" He exhaled. "Because I can live without the company, the money, all the noise. But I can't live without this. Without you." The girls squeezed her tighter. She closed her eyes for a moment. "I thought I had to protect you from my world. You were trying to protect us by leaving," he said gently. "But that's not protection. That's just pain." She opened the door wider. "Then come in." He stepped across the threshold, the girls still wrapped around her legs. The moment was still and sacred. No camera flashes, just 4 hearts together in a doorway. "I don't need anything else," he whispered. She nodded, her own voice breaking. "Me neither." And this time, no one let go. Life after that day didn't return what it was. It settled into something better, truer. Malik and Amara began again, not in secret or with grand gestures, but with a quiet resolve to do it right. There were walks in the park, story times in the living room, and grocery trips where Zuri insisted on pushing the cart. Amara moved with caution, but she stayed. And Malik, understanding the world, had already tried to shatter hers, never rushed her. Instead, he asked gently, "If you could do anything in the world, what would it be?" Amara smiled. "Start a reading program for kids who don't have books. For the ones who linger at the library until closing because it's better than going home," Malik nodded. "Then let's build it." They called it Story Nest, a mobile library that visited shelters and community centers. Amara organized it, chose the books, and read to children with the same warmth she'd shown Zuri and Nia. Malik funded it quietly, letting her lead. The media narrative slowly shifted, focusing on the program's impact rather than on their relationship. At home, their life became beautifully ordinary. Amara stayed for dinner, then for the night, reading bedtime stories until the girls, clinging to her arms, drifted to sleep. She taught them how to draw faces that showed feelings and how to make their own picture books. Malik would often watch from the doorway, his heart swelling with a feeling deeper than happiness. It felt like home. One evening, after a story about a lost bear finding a new family, Nia yawned sleepily. "Miss Amara, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweet girl. Can I call you Mama Amara?" The room fell silent. Malik held his breath. Tears instantly welled in Amara's eyes. She knelt by the bed, taking Nia's small hand. "If that is what is in your heart, then yes. Of course you can." Nia snuggled closer. Zuri reached for her, too. Amara kissed both their foreheads as silent tears fell. Malik sat on the edge of the bed and took Amara's free hand in his. No words were needed. Later, after the house was quiet, they sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket. "I never wanted to replace anyone," Amara whispered. "You didn't," he said. "You created a place all your own." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I didn't think I had enough to give all of you." Malik looked at her, his voice thick with emotion. "You gave them back their childhood. You gave me a reason to believe again." A year later, everything had changed, yet the essentials remained. Amara still lived in her apartment and worked at the library because she loved it. She was no longer the CEO's mystery woman. She was simply Amara. Malik never pushed her to move into his mansion. Instead, they spent their weekends at the small cottage, a home overflowing with crayons and warmth. On a bright spring afternoon, they had a picnic in the backyard at a familiar table. Malik had salvaged the worn, mismatched set from their first date. "You kept the wrong table," Amara said, her eyes shining. "Some mistakes," Malik grinned, "are worth keeping." The girls, barefoot and laughing, presented Amara with a small box wrapped in a napkin. Inside was a ring woven from string and colorful beads. "It's your forever ring," Zuri announced. Malik knelt beside her. "I used to think my value was in what I owned," he said, his voice trembling. Then came a wrong table, 2 little girls, and a woman who saw past all of it to the man underneath. "I'm not asking for a headline, Amara Daniels. Just this. Be with us. Be the heart of this home. Will you marry me?" Amara laughed through her tears, slipping the precious, lopsided ring onto her finger. "We've been a family for a while now," she said. "You just finally catching up," the girls squealed, enveloping them in a hug. There were no cameras, only sunlight and the laughter of 2 children who had authored the most unlikely of love stories. That evening, as the sky turned to gold, they sat on the porch swing. "You were never the wrong woman," he whispered. "You were the right one at a table I never expected," Amara smiled. "And you were never the billionaire. You were always just a dad with kind eyes and spaghetti on his shirt." Love doesn't always arrive on schedule. Sometimes it shows up unexpectedly, sits at the wrong table, and makes the entire world right. Malik had tried to hide his heart behind a wall of wealth, and Amara feared her small world couldn't contain a love so big. But in the end, what mattered wasn't the mansion, but the bedtime stories, the crayon hearts, and the woman who chose to love the man, not the name.